There's a small journey I've had in the past 6, 7 years, and I'm here to just share what exactly happened. Uh, First of all, I'll talk about India. Today, when people talk about India, they talk about China in the same breath. There's a global hype about India being the next superpower. If you look at India, what comes to your mind? If it is military strength, we have almost the fourth largest army in the world. If it is economy, we have been amongst the top economies in the world. If it is population, we're going top the charts by 2034. But if you look at India, there's a lot more what comes to my mind. It is something, all these numbers aligned to the power of attraction. The ability of a nation to attract people because of its foreign policies, culture, political values. That is what India is all about. We know India is the largest democracy in the world. In the past 10,000 years, India never invaded any country. We got independence without violence. Sanskrit is the mother of all languages and mostly European languages. Pythagoras' theorem, pi, algebra, trigonometry came from this land. While I was growing up, I come from Jammu and Kashmir. The backdrop was terrorism. I come from a conflict zone. And while I was growing up, we realized there's something very interesting about people coming from Jammu and Kashmir. We have grown up solving problems only. Literally struggling for getting groceries from the market and figuring out what we'll do the next day. We almost grew up where almost for years there was curfew imposed in Kashmir. And all I wanted to do when I was growing up was leave Jammu and Kashmir forever and never ever return. And they say never. What happened was, I grew up, and the only string that one had that time was, if you're good academically, you can hope to get a good job, and when you get a good job, just leave this place and never return for good life. I also did that exactly. I fell in love with technology. In fact, a lot of people say that I've been a hacker. I have worked for a lot of organizations around the world fighting crime. What I know is that I just wanted to look at things from a different perspective, and all of that I owe to my state. Why? Because we grew up solving problems only. And to look at technology issues, to look at business issues, I think I developed that from the reason that I was growing up in Jammu and Kashmir, a place which was politically disturbed. Because I had the keys of the organization. For example, if you hire me to make the locks of your home, I know the keys to your home. I know all the access to your house. You cannot treat me bad. So with that skill, I could negotiate a lot of luxuries in my life. It was that bad that I used to call back home and say, "Ghar pe kya bana hai?" बोलते दाल बनी है. हम उसी वक्त फ़ोन करते थे एयरलाइंस में, पूछते what was being served on the airlines was better than what was cooked at home. We just booked the flight and we have done that many times. Only why? Because we could negotiate that kind of luxury. I'm talking about an extreme in my life. But in 2012, something happened. I was just scrolling through one of my news apps, and I found that there was a news that 25,000 Pashmina goats died of starvation in Changthang. And this is a place in Jammu and Kashmir I've never seen. It is a remote village almost on the borders of China. This thing there was a hook somewhere, and I called a lot of people who are in the business of Pashmina, and I called them and said, "Aapko pata hai kuch hua hai? Have you done something?" Before that, I did not have any connection with Pashmina. I just wanted to go, and I think biggest decisions in life take moments only. For smaller things, you keep planning. And I think it was that moment when I said, I'm leaving everything and I'm just going back and I'm going to these goats. It has been 6 years. I've been living a life of a shepherd. I went with no plan. I still do not have a plan. But what I'm doing is I'm just going with the flow and looking at what is the next logical thing I should be doing, and I'm doing that. So my life and my brain was stretched in two extremes. And whatever I had in my past life, no skill was relevant in the new life. I think I fell in love with the goats. And today people ask me, why are you doing what you're doing? I think the only answer I have is that maybe as a child I used to play with goats. There's nothing else. These are my goats. Uh, so what happened with me is something very interesting. I went to this community, almost boasting of my talent and what skills I had. And I went with the intention that I'll teach them a lot of things, but the reverse happened. What I learned from them is so strong and something that settles me in my life. And those are the lessons which I got from these shepherds. These lessons of wisdom are equally applicable to students, startups, organizations, CEOs, homemakers, moms, and leaders. And these are the lessons which I'll share with you. The first lesson which I learned from them was shared excess baggage. Now, we all know that we use Google, right? We go to Google and do different kinds of searches. On the back, there's something called Google Trends. Now, if all of you go and search for paracetamol, that shows that all of you are suffering from a headache, right? So there are two ways to look at it. So from this data, what happens is you pick this data, you extrapolate it, and you create a pattern, and that pattern creates a geometry, and that geometry creates a picture, and that picture talks. Only if you're in a position to understand that picture, you will know what you have to do. Say, for example, if you're searching for paracetamol, that means there is a headache. Now, there are two ways to handle it. Either I go on the entrepreneurial side, what I do is I open shops or sell paracetamol, or on the other side, I look at what is the reason for this headache. Let me go and solve and figure out what is the reason why people here are having a headache. So, genius of the last century, Albert Einstein, when asked about the oneness of the universe and the symmetry in the universe, he refuted that there is nothing like God, but he said it is not about God, it is about godliness. Only when you are not full will you be in a position to appreciate. So as a shepherd, there is only two things that a shepherd carries. One is a staff and the other is a blanket. Meaning, if you have 2,500 goats to take care of and you have baggage on you, will you be able to take care of those goats? No. So if you have to appreciate, if you have to understand and figure out solutions for people around you, you have to be light yourself. Meaning that you have to be light to get light in. Lesson 2, count your sheep. For the shepherds, every goat is important. Today we know in management schools we talk about SWOT analysis and different kinds of analysis. So there was an economist, an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto. In 1906, he said that he was studying the pattern of ownership of land in Italy by people. He found that there is a certain similarity in the way chaos was structured. He spoke about a rule called 80-20, where he said 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. He went into his kitchen garden. He found that 80% of the peas come from 20% of the pea pods. He found that there's a certain symmetry, that there's a pattern under the chaos, and my life was in total chaos. But I realized there is something which connects the dots. So if you look at the ownership and the wealth pattern of the top 3 richest people in the world, Warren Buffett, Carlos, and Bill Gates, and you look at the next 7, these 2 and 3 almost own a similar wealth that the next 7 or 8 have. So this thing was connecting. So I also knew that there was something that was connecting the dots. And I realized that only if as a lesson from the shepherds, counting your sheep, counting your blessings, and also looking at the usage of your skill and ensuring that wherever you find application of your skills to create change around you is important. Lesson number 3. As people, as individuals, as students, we learn different skills to get employed, to do something different in our societies. We have all the right to seek greener pastures, to look for new opportunities around. And disagreement that we have in society, disagreement is something that, you do not agree with me, I agree with somebody else, and this is the basic design in which growth comes. This is the basic design on which, if I do not agree, I open myself to learning new things. So divergence, the disagreement is a reality. It is the same thing that binds stars and subatomic strata. It is a common theme that runs between businesses and societies. And quantum physics the latest advances in quantum physics are pointing in a very interesting direction. They say the output of an experiment is controlled by the state of mind of the experimenter, meaning what you're thinking, you're getting that. So this is very important. So what you seek is seeking you. So as we grow up, as we acquire skills, we need to seek. We need to consciously seek. And only when you seek, you will be able to get yourself onto a journey where you will either go in one of the two directions. You go in searching your soul or through this world. And in both cases, you find your true calling. When you grow up in your careers, in your life, so when you're top in the mountains, that is where the fear of attack of wolves is. When you go, this is what shepherds teach you. Face the wolves, face your inner demons. And we also have to understand that we cannot always have an ostrich approach where I say that this is a problem that my grandfather created or my father created, I cannot solve it. But there's another approach where you say, this is the problem that my father or grandfather created, let me solve it, and the problems which I will create, let my children solve it. So there are two ways in which I look at it. So facing the wolves is something very powerful. So in wisdom traditions, opposites define each other, yin and yang, black and white, zeros and ones. One is defining the other. So only if you're able to face the demons in you, which every day you encounter, there might be opportunities that you encounter. And those might be the gateways to finding your own self. This is me living a life of shepherd with my heroes and the goat, obviously. Fifth, a very important lesson, leave the pasture. A shepherd knows no matter how green a pasture is, it will not stay like that forever. So when we do well in life, we become arrogant. We develop a certain bias. We think that what we are doing is absolutely right. And that is where we expose ourselves. The risk goes high, and that is where our downfall begins. So to know exactly when to exit the party is very important. Leaders do it. People around the world who have done something big in life, they knew when to leave. Now, I was talking about Jammu and Kashmir. There is something, there was a paper written called mean reversion, that when elements move from the center towards extreme positive or to extreme negative, there is a certain magic that happens, meaning the elements which are on the extreme positive and the elements which are on the extreme negative, there's a certain magical force that pulls them back to the mean. And this is called extreme reversion. What do you have at the end of war? Prolonged spells of peace. I wrote a paper a long time back, and the title of the paper was, "The probability of falling in love with the one you hate is always high. But the condition is that you have to hate in extreme. Only if you do that in extreme, you will find there's something reverse that happens." Today we see there's a lot of fragmentation in society. A lot of people say, "Yaar, ye problem to mere father ne ki aur ye to itni badi hai. Climate change is such a big problem. Poverty is such a big problem. I cannot do anything. I'm not the chief minister or the minister or the prime minister of the country. How can I solve it?" But in the same society, you will find there are people who say, "Let us fight climate change. Let us fight poverty." And they do not have any power. So it is because of those small, tiny efforts that have preserved the society. And that is where we need to understand that no mountain too high. The last and the final lesson from these shepherds, that when you're climbing mountains in your life, they can be of different altitude. And there is something called the wheel of life, which has 6 spokes: family, financial, social, mental, spiritual, and physical. Only if you're able to keep this wheel intact and climb the mountain, you will be able to reach somewhere. All I did, as I said, in my past life, I had technology skills, but in this new life, I had nothing. But there was one common thread which helped me move from and maneuver from my past life into new life, and that was art. And I believe art is not random. And all the efforts which I have done in the past to create awareness around the world about the ecosystem and what this whole ecosystem and the challenges that this ecosystem is facing, I only used art. What I did was I went on to I started painting on paper. I realized nothing is working. I started painting on canvas. I said nothing is happening. No one is taking note of why am I doing it? Because I was powerless. I had no power. I wanted to help 1 million people and raise issues and figure out somebody powerful will figure out a way and this community will get attention. And my work is over and I will leave. Then I started painting on canvas. I said nothing is happening. Then I took the hides of the goats and started painting, created a lot of hype. Now my paintings are in the house of the President of India, former Presidents of India. I created a lot of noise with my art. Then I painted with my blood and the blood of the goat. And then a lot of people started saying, there is something serious happening here. I got a lot of organizations to look at the serious issues that this community is facing in the Himalayan region. Then I picked up the hair of the goat of Pashmina and started creating portraitures. This is some of my artwork. I learned some very technical skills of the Pashmina craft, and I'm using this. And these are some of my artworks which have become very popular globally with certain message. This is Positive Mind. This is Mother Teresa. Teamwork. You'll see some owners and founders of luxury brands because Pashmina is a luxury product. Ka Laga Feel. Some of my artworks. Lalvishri was a mystic poet of Kashmir. She said, the way is difficult and very intricate. Truth never comes to anyone from reading words. And this is me with the community and the children I work with, and I believe a worldwide celebration of love and the greatest spiritual revolution will be experienced when animals will feel as joyous as humans and children. And this is the final thing which I talk about, and this is the goats. And this is the spiritual revolution on which I'm working. And my project, which holds 1 million people together, is actually a project of peace in the region, which is a conflict zone. And I believe that with this project, we'll be able to change lives of 1 million people in the region. This is the project, what we are doing, a little about this. We're building livelihood with dignity for the community, opportunity and pride for the future generation, and economic freedom for the community and the next generation. It is also about branding Jammu and Kashmir and creation of new markets for this community and the product. I wrote a book called 6 Times Thinner, and interestingly, there's something very mysterious about this 6 number following me. I still am trying to figure out what this 6 is. I started with, I'll tell you a little about this. 6 is a number which I'm still trying to figure out has some significance in my life. And when I started, I'm a born 15th, which is a number 6. I'm the 6th child in the family. Pashmina, when I got into it, Pashmina, I realized that Pashmina comes from a word which is Pashma, which is again a 6-letter word. People and strangers who've come and helped and become part of this project are number 6. There's so much that goes on, even to an extent today where I'm staying has a number 6. All the hotel rooms, air tickets, my numbers are 6. And when I went to a lab to figure out what is the best number of tests that a Pashmina should go through to be certified as original Pashmina, again the number of tests is 6. I dedicate my work to my heroes, which is Pashmina goats, the shepherds, Gujars Bakarwals, Pashmina weavers, craftsmen and women of Basoli, Ladakh and Kashmir. Thank you.